I'm going to attempt to ride my bike out to the farm field. It's probably a couple miles. I haven't tried it yet because my legs and back give me a lot of trouble. So we'll see what happens. I haven't been able to get a hold of Gil to see if he wanted to go. So I'm doing this on my own today. And on my way out there, I will probably give you some updates. And definitely when I'm out in the field, I will be talking to you a lot more than I usually do. So stay tuned. Thought I'd give you an update from where I'm at right now. That's Hamilton down there, I believe, Hamilton Street. I'm right next to a very old wall, brick stone fence. They've covered part of it here with cement because the actual bricks are crumbling, as you can see. But I'm glad they've decided to try to preserve the structure, even though I think they could have done it so it would have looked better. Anyways, I would say I'm about not quite halfway there. And again, temperature's probably up about, I'm thinking right now, up around 58, 59. Here's a nice shot of the confluence of two rivers. I believe the one on the left is the Cass River. The other one, I'm not sure, Shiawassee, but they form the Saginaw River. So I guess some geese that are going to say hi to us. Hello, geese. I love those sounds. This is great. Anyways, I would bet anything that that point of land is probably a plethora of Native American artifacts. Anyways, let's get going. I'm almost there. Well, I'm talking a bit. Slightly out of breath, but I'm here. It was an easy ride until I got to the brush to come back here to the field. This is an area that Gil and I had found a great many pottery shards in years or so ago. Actually, here's a few right here. The orange pieces there. I don't know if I'm going to collect them because I have hundreds of them at home. Let those ones be. What I'm going to do is grab my bike, go along the edge of the field here. And there's geese tracks and deer tracks. Anyways, go to the edge of the field, up to that power pole, and from there out to see if I can find any points where Gil had found them the last time him and I were out here. I shall be right back with you. I haven't picked it up yet. Just right now. Now this, I can't remember the type of stone you call it. It is layered, so it's probably sedimentary. But I found Jerry Wagner, a dear friend of mine who's now passed. Him and I went to a site up in Tawas where mastodon had been, where a mastodon had been uncovered. Breeze out here. I want to show you two pieces that I picked up a little bit ago, and I didn't turn the camera on because I didn't really think they were that significant, and they may not be. This is one, and this is one. Now this one has been worked on the edge, has been pressure flaked on the edge. It has a notch, but it's by unifacial, worked only on one side. I believe that they were working on an arrowhead. It may have been even completed and the tip broke off. This one is really problematic. I believe that points like this should be carefully looked over more because it could very easily be that they used this on on a shaft, maybe for a small spear, for fish, for frogs, what have you. And I spotted something here. Okay, that's nothing in particular. Again, I apologize for the sound of the wind. Here's a little tiny fragment of pottery, and that's pretty much usually all you find out here are the little tiny fragments, and that's probably because it's been cracked up by the plows and that for many years. I'm going to tell you a quick story, or maybe two if you don't mind, and hopefully you can hear them. When I'm out here looking like this, or any place that I'm by myself, I think about, on YouTube, David Pilati, Missing 411. And if you've not watched it yet, you really should. They're fascinating. The work he does is quite incredible. But it's about people that go missing, leaving not a trace, under very mysterious circumstances, and they are never seen again. Now, some people think that people, they disappear into another dimension, and time and space, and who knows? Maybe that's so. I don't know. God has created some absolutely extraordinary things, and that could be the case with this. But anyways, I always think about that out here. I hope that if I were to disappear and into another dimension, that it would be much lesser than the dimension that we would be considered being in right now. And then, I forgot what the other story was I was going to tell you. So if it comes to me, I will turn this back on. See where my finger is? It's a very tiny piece of stone, worked stone, that would have been perfect on a small sphere or shaft to use as a sphere for frogs, for fish, for crayfish, for whatever. It has definitely been worked on both sides. Most people probably would say, well, it's a fragment from working on other tools, and it could be, but I don't think so. Yeah, see where I have my finger right there? It's a fragment of turtle bone, very old, from an ancient dinner served in the area here. Now here's another piece. Oh, that's not what I thought it was. Okay, but I'm looking at the ground again. I've picked up a couple small bird points since I turned this on last time. But when I get all done, I will give a roundup so you can see all the pieces together. Here's a nice piece of pottery, I think. Yeah, this is one of the bigger pieces. Why is it out of focus? Just a second, folks. All right, this is one of the bigger pieces. Now, you saw the other day, or on a video the other day, might have been the first video of Charlie Cat Presents, the full bottom, rounded bottom of a pot. And that was right from this area too. This is a pretty good sized piece. Okay, I'll get back to you shortly. As I'm doing this, I'm just scanning the ground for shapes. Shapes will give away feathers, an artifact, or whatever, what have you, bones or whatever. But the important thing is to keep your eyes moving and look for shapes, basic shapes that catch your attention, and trust your instinct, trust your gut instinct. Like my gut instinct says pick this up, but my instinct was wrong because it is a piece of wood. There is so much little stone here to look at, so much, and some of it is just double-dash, but so much of it is more than that. Okay, all right, I'm sitting here amongst metal and crockery and glass debris that would have been, this is where Judge Miller's home site would have been. I'm sitting on it right now. And if you watch my videos, you know that, of course, that it goes back to the mid to late 1830s. And I was wondering, I've been a writer most of my life and let my mind wander. And I was kind of thinking, what would happen if while I was sitting right here, all of a sudden, I was back there? What would they think of the camera that I got? Or the milk crate I got tied to my bicycle? Cell phone, which wouldn't work. And Coca-Cola bottle. It's funny to think about these things. I just, would they think I was a demon and kill me, or what would they do with you? Something to think about. You know what, folks, friends? give this some thought and tell me what you think about that in the comment section. I'd like to know your thoughts on that. What would they think of me or you if you went back to the 1830s? All right, in a short while, I'm going to head back, but I'm going to give you a roundup out here on the field before I go. So I'll see you in just a few. Hey, tell you another story while my bike is laying there on the ground, and I'm not quite ready to go back yet. I hope you can hear me. I hope the wind's not too bad. Back, oh golly, about 1986, 87, I had purchased a quad runner, and I spent every spare moment that I had on that quad runner. Well, this might sound stupid, but I nicknamed the quad runner Schoolcraft, and I had it painted on it. And the reason I did that was because Henry Schoolcraft was a famous early Michigan explorer, ethnologist, and so I just, okay, so I named it Schoolcraft. At any rate, I was going down this dirt path, which was right next to the railroad track there in Oscoda, around Loud Drive, and between Cedar Lake Road and Loud Drive, and it just cut out, stopped running. And I got off from it, and I walked around the back to see if anything was wrong back there, and there wasn't. And then I walked around the front to see if there was anything, there, and there wasn't. But laying right at my feet, when I stepped to the front, was the most beautiful blackish blue shining arrowhead that you could imagine. And it was thin, it was long, and it was slender, and it was perfect. It was flawless. But oddly too, though, it had triple notching on it, which was very uncharacteristic, to the other things that we would find in that area. So my friend Jerry Wagner, who's now deceased, but he was my mentor on all of these things that I'm doing now. I showed it to him, and he pretty much identified it as early archaic late Paleolithic, which puts it back there a long time. But the funny thing is, I picked it up, wrapped it up, and delicately put it in my pocket. And as soon as I hopped back on Schoolcraft, started right up and took off. I was supposed to find that arrowhead. That probably actually was a spear point, but I was supposed to find it, and it was awesome. And so I just thought I'd share that with you. I don't know why. My bike laying there like it is right now reminded me of Schoolcraft by the railroad track there. So anyways, wind's picking up again, so I'm going to shut this off. I'm going to look around just a little bit longer, then head back, and we're getting into an area where I can lay all these things out. I will do a roundup with you. All right, God bless you. Professionally walking into the scene again, because I still don't have a good tripod or cameraman. I do have a little black kitty cat down here at my feet. That would be Charlie Cat's sister, and she's black like he is, with a white patch on her chest. She's a cutie. But anyways, not here to talk about Juno. That's her name, Juno. Okay, Sunday I went out to the farm field, as you know, and it was a beautiful morning, really beautiful. And on my way out there on my bike, there was a little breeze, but it was at my back, and it actually felt good. And so when I got out to the farm field, I spent about 2.5 hours looking for artifacts. And what I found, I think, was pretty interesting, because I found 14 bird points, a number of crushing stones, a number of other items, historic period items from the 1830s were from the Judge Albert Miller homestead site. So anyways, as I said, I find so many bird points at this one particular spot because most people don't look for them. I mean, if you're walking and looking down, some of these you're just not going to see. And I don't do that. I get down on my hands and knees, literally, and crawl and look for the bird points in this one particular section. so I find them, and I find small pottery shards from light woodland and so on and so on. So I'm going to show you the bird points first. On my way home, though, from the farm field, on my way home from the farm field, the wind had picked up considerably, and it was coming directly at me. I have really bad problems with my legs and my back, and as I pedaled, I began hurting really, really, really bad, and so I had to stop, and it wasn't even a quarter of the way home. So I called Gil, and he came and got me, rescued me once again, and brought me home. If he hadn't come, I think I would have had to probably call 911 to come and get me, seriously, because I hurt that much at that point in time. Okay, you'll notice a difference in me this time. From Sunday, I shaved off my beard and cut my hair because I got tired of looking like a miniature midget Sasquatch. But now that I've done that, I'm not so sure I like it, so I'll probably let it grow back. Anyways, I'm going to walk off the scene again, and I'll be back with you in just a moment to show you some of the bird points. Alright, before I show you the bird points from Sunday, I want to show you some that Gil and I found year before last. We didn't get out on the field at all last year because of how wet it was the whole year. But we found also 14 bird points that year. And let me show you a few of these. I hope it'll stay nice and crisp and focus. There's 5 of them. This one is interesting. It's made of a stone called Upper Blue Mercer, and the stone came from Flint Ridge, Ohio, which shows that there were trade routes with the Indians down there. We knew that, but that's just proof positive. Then up here, these ones are a little bit larger. Well, yeah, a little bit larger than the ones below. This one shows nice notching, but they don't have to be notched to be a bird point. Here's another one from Blue Mercer. And then coming down here are 4 bases from larger bird points. And this one is a stemmed point, as you can see. This one is a notched point. This one would have been a triangular Lavina type point, and this one again would have been a notched point. And perhaps most unique of the ones found there at this particular time. And as collectively, this is a small bird point of obsidian, which is volcanic glass, not natural to Michigan, as you know, probably know, and it is natural to the northwest. And so we know that there were trade routes from way out there too, which is not, again, something that's a real surprise. It's something we knew about, but here on this humble site next to the river in Saginaw is this piece of obsidian, volcanic glass. I'm sure there must be more artifacts there made of obsidian. I'm sure we'd like to find some of them. Okay, let's look at some of the other bird points, the ones that I actually found. These are 14 laid out together. I'm going to show you these individually against a black background so that you can see them better. And I have a nickel laying down here that we can use for size comparison. This one is probably the largest. No, it is the largest, not probably, of those that I collected this past Sunday. It is made of a white chert. It is made out of the outer cortex of the chert. It is more than likely Bayport nodular chert, meaning that the raw material came from the thumb area of the state, and the outer cortex was something that wasn't used for the best of the artifacts. It just was not the quality that the inner part of the nodule or tab would have been. Because you see, the Bayport chert came in 2 varieties. It came in tabular, which was laid down like a in layers, and then there were the balls of chert, which are shaped like round balls. Okay, so you can see on the edge of this one, hopefully in this picture, that it has been pressure flaked here, making the edge sharper. It would have been mounted quite easily with only that part showing. Okay, next up, this one also would be from Bayport Chert. It is again from the outer cortex of tabular or nodular chert. It has particularly nice pressure flaking along that edge. I hope you can see that. I hope it doesn't blur. And this one would have been pointed, or would have been mounted about like that. And these, although they're called bird points, they weren't just used specifically for birds. They were used for frogs or crayfish, and they probably weren't shot with a bow. They were probably used as a handheld spear. I'm thinking they would be most effective that way. This one is broken. The tip is broken off, but you see at the base, or the bottom, that it has a small notch. Now, this piece could have been repurposed to use that notch as something to shave down, say, not a narrow shaft because it's too small, but it could have been used in preparing ash and different things for making baskets. Here's a very nicely formed one. It has a nice point and a nice base. And let's look at the other side. It is unifacially worked. It's worked only on one side, which is the case with most of these bird points that I find there. Very sharp, very effective. It is a stemmed type point, and it would have been mounted something like that. Would be what was left exposed. Okay, moving along. This one is a utilized flake, debitage. It is material that was left from the production of other stone tools. It was modified probably slightly, and but it is a very sharp point. Again, it's unifacial, worked only on one side. But you can see on the edges it is pressure flaked very nicely, very sharp point. This would have been a very effective piece, and it had notches on both sides. The notch on the left is obviously, sorry about the shaking, is obviously broken off, but the one on the right is very, very good, indicative of what the left-hand side would have been like. So over here, this is a curious one because it's lobed, I guess. Now, I was looking at it that way, that this was the point, but I don't think so at this point. That was really kind of dumb of me. Actually, this is a broken point. The point would have been at the top, and this would have been stemmed instead of notched. The stem fitting into a hole in the shaft that was being used. This one too is Bayport Chert. This is a more dark gray, but again, it's local chert. It is similar to other ones in this small collection. Triangular with a stubby stem on it, which would have allowed it to be mounted. The edges are again pressure flaked. Well, this one not so much, but this edge is pressure flaked really nicely. And on the flip side, you can see that this one is also unifacial, worked on one side only. Now here we have one that was broken and the top was rounded, so it was still used. It could have been, man, I'm not sure what it could have been used as a very small knife. It would have probably been held between the fingers like this to cut with, and it's sharpened, pressure flaked again on the end here, on the broken end, and it's pressure flaked nicely on both edges. So it's been modified quite a bit and was again repurposed after it had been broken and could not be used as a point any longer. Here again we have a point of Blue Mercer. Now you might be thinking, well, that bottom looks like it should be the arrow point, but you see how it's curved? That wouldn't work well as a point. But turning it back around, you can see that it comes to a point. It is pressure notched on all edges. It is unifacial again, and again this is the flint that would have come from Flint Ridge, Ohio. Stick with me, friends. We've only got a few more of the bird points to look at. This one, again, similar to other ones I showed you here, unifacial, nice point, pressure flaked on the edges, rounded base. It would have been very easily fitted into a shaft, probably attached not so much with sinew, but perhaps with pine pitch or something of that nature. These three I'm going to lay out here right now are the smallest ones from this time. Let me see, let me get them lined up a little bit straighter here, if I can. Alright, and get that back in there. Alright, these are definitely bird points, and they're definitely small. This one here is broken, the tip is broken off. These two are nicely formed. This one would be considered to have like a flute up the center so that it could be attached, and it's sharpened on both left and right edges. Nice point. This little baby is nicely formed. It comes to a stemmed base, and again, any of these would have probably been attached with pine pitch or something of that nature. The ones that have notches, not so much. Those ones would have probably been attached using sinew and maybe a little bit of pine pitch. So those are the bird points that I found this past Sunday. I hope you enjoyed looking at them. They were a lot of fun. They were a lot of fun to find and very interesting. They may have been, not necessarily these tiny ones may have been used by children learning how to use a spear, or how to, well, it would be hard to make something that small, I would think, for a child. But definitely it could have been used to train them in the use of spears. Alright, let's take a look right now. I was really rather excited when I found it. It looks rather plain, but it is very flat. It is tabular or layered. It has quite obviously been worked, but is incomplete or was broken in the process of being worked, I should say. This really fascinated me first because many years ago now, I lived up in Oscoda, and my dear friend and mentor Jerry Wagner was invited to the John Henry farm in East Tawas because the Henrys were putting in a farm pond, and they had actually come up with the remains of the Jefferson mammoth. And at the time, and it still may be, the farthest north that a Jefferson mammoth had ever been found in Michigan. Well, the people from the state who looked at the remains didn't see any indication that humans may have been involved in the death of that mammoth. However, when Jerry was there with me, I saw a smile break out in his face, and he knelt down and he took a stone that was this same material, and it was tapered down to a point, or not to a point, but to a bevel on one end, and was quite obviously a celt or a scraping tool, and it was within the remains of the Jefferson mammoth. So how the people from the state of Michigan could have missed that is beyond me, because its importance is quite incredible. But at any rate, I'm telling you all this because this reminded me of that incident when I found it. But what is it? What was it going to be made into? And I believe it was going to be made into a gorget, which is a pendant that has a drilled hole that was suspended then around the neck of a male member of the tribe. Women may have wore these, but I don't see that recorded any place. It was primarily the ornamentation of a man. So it is not. This is the only piece I've found on that farm field so far of this type of stone. I don't think it's native to this area. I believe that it was brought in probably as a trade item. Now, how old is it? Well, the Jefferson Mammoth find would have probably been about 12,000 years ago. That doesn't necessarily mean that this would be. However, I do believe that this could be a connection to a much earlier time frame at that field site, most of which is late woodland and early historic. This piece could go back much further. There's one other piece at this site that I found that indicates that it might have been from the late Archaic, which is when this one could have possibly been from. The other piece is a broken spear point, which is called a turkey tail because of the shape. And the turkey tail was used throughout the Archaic periods, if my understanding of that is correct. So, this piece was found on a site primarily late woodland, but still has the strong possibility of being Archaic. Now I have a photograph here that I want to show you. This one that I got from the net that shows how, and this is the kind of stone that this one was made out of, being made into. And anyways, this one is drilled, has a hole drilled, and if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll have seen that that stone drills were frequently used by the Native Americans on a number of different materials and purposes. So they would have actually hand woven the cordage. They would have drilled the hole, which, if you can, I don't know if you can tell here or not, but it looks countersunk. Almost all the holes drilled with a stone drill look countersunk like that. Now, up here is another gorget. This one is double holed, and it is more in the middle to late woodland period style. They are very, very nice, very desirable, worked really nicely. Some of them will have markings like this one on the side that are called tally marks, commemorating some event, perhaps a hunting event or a warring event or something of that nature. But you know, these are beautiful examples. And then this is another. Now, I actually found one similar to this, except it was black, and that was found up at my old Vanetta Creek site in Oscoda, Michigan, years ago, and was destroyed at some point during a very ugly divorce, where my ex-wife confiscated many of these pieces, and a boyfriend of hers later destroyed some of the most significant pieces because of jealousy. But at any rate, so I didn't mean to get off on that, I'm sorry, but the piece that I found was like that upper section, okay, broken down across the bottom, and it had the nicely drilled hole. And then here are some broken ones. The pictures were not real clear on the internet of these ones, but those are gorgets. When the first explorers came into this area, they brought silver gorgets to trade with the Indians for furs and other commodities that would be very desirable to the people in Europe. See this little face? This is Juno, and that's Charlie Cat's little sister. But she hasn't got any video productions named after her yet. Okay, Let's take a look at something. Well, I like to keep my videos on the short side, and this one is going way long. We're probably close to 30 minutes. And so I'm going to cut this into two parts. The second part will concern a few more Native American Indian artifacts, and then quite a few of the 1836 period artifacts from Judge Albert Miller's home site there. These last two pieces here that I'm showing you are rounded stones, and they are known as pot boilers, and they were used around the cooking hearth. And what they would do, the clay pots that the Native Americans made were really quite fragile. They weren't fired to a high degree like pottery is, today. So they either had a rounded or pointed bottom, and they were set in the sand next to the fire. And with wooden tongs, the cook, probably a lady, would have taken these pot boilers, these rounded stones, and placed them into the fire and get them heated up very, very hot. And then they would gently lower it into the pot, and in time the content would boil and cook, because they keep taking them out and use them over, and a rather laborious process, I guess, but that's how they heated their food in the late woodland. Of course, it changed dramatically at the close of the late woodland when the first Europeans arrived here. This one is rather large. And you can see work on it that rounded it out some. This one probably was formed this way naturally, and they picked it up and used it. Some, like I said, some they modify, some they don't, or didn't, excuse me. So that's it for this time. I hope you've enjoyed part one of my solo adventure out at the farm field, and be looking probably about a week, and I will have part two up here for you. Thank you so much. I appreciate each and every one of you that come here and watch. I appreciate your comments, and you bring joy to my heart. God bless each and every one of you.